Every takeoff is a promise. The rejected takeoff, keeping promises grounded. Introduction. In the business world, executives often face what they call go-no-go decisions. Those moments when they must choose whether to launch a new product, invest in a project, or walk away. In aviation, we face a similar moment, the rejected takeoff. The only difference is the timeline. Not weeks or months, but just a few seconds to decide. In both worlds, success depends on preparation and discipline. Or, as the old British Army adage, known as the 7 Ps put it, proper planning and preparation prevents piss-poor performance. Like much of aviation wisdom, it started rough and real, passed around on flight lines and in briefing rooms where humor and discipline often meet. Over time, the expression was cleaned up for classrooms and manuals, but the meaning never changed. Preparation is everything. One of the most critical decisions a line pilot must be prepared for on every single flight is whether to continue or abort the takeoff. A rejected takeoff is a challenging maneuver that demands immediate action. Yet although the preparation takes years, the time for decision-making is measured in seconds. Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman, in his work Thinking, Fast and Slow, described 2 systems that govern human thought. System 1 is quick, intuitive, and emotional, the part of our brain that leaps to conclusions and reacts before we even realize it. System 2, on the other hand, is deliberate, logical, and reflective, the part that checks, verifies, and reasons. During the takeoff roll, these 2 systems collide. At high speed, when a sudden anomaly appears, System 1 wants to react, while System 2 struggles to weigh options. The startle effect, the narrowing of attention, the rush of adrenaline, all conspire to silence the slow thinker when we need it most. That is why simulator training exists. Through repetition, briefing, and simulation, we rewire instinct, teaching the fast brain to behave like the slow one under time pressure. It's not possible to list every factor that could lead to a rejected takeoff. That's why the ECAM protects the pilot's attention by suppressing non-essential warnings from 80 knots to 1,500 feet or 2 minutes after liftoff. It's designed to safeguard cognitive bandwidth, reducing distractions during the most time-critical phase of flight. A small but profound detail in the aircraft's design, a system that knows when the human brain is most vulnerable to overload. To assist the captain in decision-making, the takeoff roll is divided into 2 distinct regimes: low and high speed. The boundary is set at 100 knots, not because the aircraft changes, but because the human mind does. Below 100 knots, there is still room to think. At those lower speeds, if any ECAM caution or warning appears, the captain may decide to reject at discretion, as the energy involved in stopping is still relatively small. Above 100 knots, the situation changes. Braking energy increases exponentially, proportional to the square of airspeed. At these higher speeds, the captain must become go-minded, committed to continue unless the threat is clear and unambiguous. A fire warning, a severe engine failure, a sudden loss of thrust, or any condition that makes the aircraft unsafe to fly. The last point for a pilot to decide is called V1, the takeoff decision speed. It's often called the point of no return, the speed beyond which there's no turning back. If something goes wrong before reaching V1, the pilot has the option to abort and bring the aircraft to a safe stop. But once V1 is reached, the decision is made. The takeoff must continue, even if there's a problem. At that point, stopping could be more dangerous than pressing forward. The rejected takeoff briefing. A typical first part of a crew non-normal briefing would address the rejected takeoff and might sound like this. This will be a left-hand seat takeoff. If any malfunction occurs before V1, I will call either stop or go. If the call is stop, I will immediately close the thrust levers and apply maximum braking and reverse consistent with the situation. Once the aircraft comes to a complete stop, I will set the parking brake and make a passenger address. Cabin crew at stations. Cabin crew at stations. Then I will return to VHF-1. To keep the briefing interactive, the captain usually turns to the first officer and asks, "Would you like to state your actions?" And the first officer continues, "I would check your actions and call any omissions. I'll call reverses, deceleration, monitor auto brake, and inform ATC, stopping on runway 36 left." Then the captain continues, "We will take a deep breath, meaning we'll transition our thinking from System 1 to System 2 and assess the situation. We'll check the gear and the doors and perform any ECAM actions. Once the ECAM actions are complete, we will decide whether to vacate the runway or perform an evacuation. If we decide to evacuate, I will call for the evacuation QRH procedure as a read and do checklist. However, if evacuation is not required, we'll request to vacate the runway and stand down the crew with a PA. Cabin crew and passengers remain seated. Cabin crew and passengers remain seated. Once we vacate the runway, we can use the brake fans and assess the brake cooling period in connection with the fuel required before considering another takeoff or returning to the gate, depending on the situation. If we attempt a subsequent takeoff, we will reset both flight directors, set the FCU, and restart the operation from the after-start checklist. Finally, we'll perform the departure change SOP and its associated checklist. Closing the promise and the lesson. Every takeoff begins with a promise, the promise of a safe flight. But not every promise is meant to be kept in the sky. Sometimes, the lesson waits on the ground. A rejected takeoff is not a failure. It's a reminder that judgment is the true engine of safety, that even in motion, there's wisdom in stopping. Through preparation and discipline, we learn that confidence is not about always going, it's about knowing when not to. My takeoff promise for you is this, that during this stop, until the next episode, you'll find a good story waiting to take flight. Keep well.